Hey, what's up everyone? It's your old pal Steven here, coming to you with another new album review. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a step outside of my comfort zone. We're going to be talking about an album that very much does not fit under the umbrella term metal, but it is brought to us by somebody who very much has lived underneath that metal umbrella. We're going to be talking about the new album from the band Ascension of the Watchers, which is a project brought to us by Mr. Burton C. Bell, who a lot of you probably know as the frontman of the band Fear Factory. And so I was able to get a sneak peek early on at this new album, which is called Apocrypha. It comes out on October 9th. Let's talk about it. So what you just heard was a little bit of the track Ghost Heart from the new Ascension of the Watchers album called Apocrypha. So for those of you who don't know, Ascension of the Watchers started off as a side project for Burton C. Bell, who is the frontman of Fear Factory, and John Bechdel, who is a keyboardist who is probably best known for not only playing keys occasionally with Fear Factory, but also very much with Ministry. So two guys that kind of have lived a little bit in the industrial side of things. And on this particular album, they also bring on board Jace Lewis, who not only is the producer engineer of the album, but he also provides drums, backing vocals, programming. He's a jack of all trades, and he rules. He actually produced my favorite album of last year, Acid Rain's The Age of Entitlement. Now in 2008, the first Ascension of the Watchers album came out, and that one is called, I have to read it, because I always say it wrong, Numinosum. That does not sound right, but that was the album. And it is a very sort of stripped down acoustic goth kind of thing. It's very moody, but the goth label seems very appropriate for much of that album. And a lot of that sound carries over into Apocrypha, the new album. Only this time, the sound is much bigger. It's fuller. There's a lot more, I guess for this kind of music, heaviness, although I use that term loosely. It's got a grand sound. It's not just some acoustic kind of understated music. This is very, very big in scope. Now, while this is not metal by any stretch of the imagination, it's definitely not mellow. It's got its mellow moments, and it is very melancholic, if that's a word, moody, if you will. But there is a heaviness that is brought on by the vibe and the mood created by the songs and the performances themselves that doesn't give this album a mellow feel at all. It's heaviness that's created by moods as opposed to by volume and distortion, which you would normally get in the metal world. I'm making these kind of comparisons from this album to metal because number one, I normally review metal albums, and number two, Burton C. Bell is known for metal albums. So I feel like a lot of the people coming on to listen to this album who may not know this group, it's kind of good to place it in that arena of how do you approach this if you're a person who predominantly listens to metal, like me. And for those of you who are like me, a simple way to draw a line to something we know would be maybe more melodic Deftones, The Cure. Sure, it's all kind of there. It's all encompassed in this sort of dark and brooding kind of sound. But I think in the case of Ascension of the Watchers, and especially Apocrypha, there's an ethereal quality to it that I don't think is really there with the other artists that I mentioned. It seems kind of inappropriate to single out particular songs because the mood of the album kind of kind of flows evenly through each track. They're not samey kind of tracks, but there's a definite mission with these songs. And the kind of haunting keys and guitars that are throughout this album, when you add Burton C. Bell's kind of somber vocal delivery on top of it, it just creates this atmosphere where the environment that is created with the tracks almost seems more important than the tracks themselves. These are like landscapes that are created in these songs. And when you listen to it, with repeated listens, especially in headphones, things start to like reveal themselves throughout the songs. Guitar parts, percussion parts, keys. It's very well produced by Mr. Jace Lewis, to where there is a really full, heavy sound to it, but at the same time, there's little intricate things that pop up here and there that basically will take a track that maybe it doesn't necessarily veer too much to the right or the left in 5 minutes, but it builds to a point where if you're not paying attention, you have no idea that there's these other little things going on. But if you're really paying attention, you start picking it apart. And that's pretty fucking great album making, in my opinion. Pretty much all of these songs gradually unfold to the point where if you're a person who doesn't normally listen to this kind of music, they could seem a little bit long-winded. But in the case of the atmosphere that these songs are trying to create, I don't think it would work any other way. But getting back to the production style of the album, it almost makes sense that Jace Lewis came aboard as an additional member of the group this time around, because I feel like his production is grand and very spacious. And like I said, there's a lot to pull out of it, almost to where the production is just as important as any of the instruments being played. It's once again, it's all about a mood that's created by these songs, and sonically there is a lot to unravel in Apocrypha. Now, a big win for this album is the fact that it kept me engaged pretty much all the way through. And I'm a guy who normally listens to thrash metal and other kinds of very in-your-face music, but I still found myself very engaged with the mood that was created, and just let myself sort of travel along on the journey. And I found myself questioning why, like what is it about this particular album or the music that I was hearing that made it so easy for me to kind of fall into it. And the thing that I kept thinking throughout the album was the fact that this feels like the perfect album for 2020 and the year that we are all having. It's introspective but tense at the same time. And even though there's kind of a hopeless quality in some of the songs, it's almost like there's an underlying optimism in the hopelessness. Almost like trying to figure out how to hold yourself together while you are in the middle of falling apart. Now, objectively, I could say that this album is a little bit too long. It's over an hour long, and for my taste, that's about 30 minutes too long. But in the case of this album, I feel like it's more appropriate just because of the way the songs unfold. You can't really create a mood like this with 3-minute tracks. And then the very end of the album, there's actually an interesting cover of the Terence Trent D'Arby song, Sign Your Name, like an 80s classic. And at first, I thought to myself, well, this is unnecessary. But I have to admit, like by the time the song had been going for about, half the length, I found myself really getting into this sort of melancholic version of a 80s pop song. And the little clip that you heard earlier is from the very first song on the album. This is a very honest album that lets you know what you're in for from the start. If this is for you, you're going to know within about 1 to 2 minutes, So it's one of those things where not everyone is going to be into this. Not all the Fear Factory fans are going to be on board with Apocrypha. But that's fine, because not everybody constantly wants to have heavy pummeling music in their ears all the time. Clearly, Burton C. Bell is one of those people, and I'm willing to bet a large amount of their fans or people that don't even fucking listen to Fear Factory. There's an audience out there. So I really feel in the end, this is going to end up crossing over that halfway point, because those people that listen to Fear Factory but are also very into industrial, those people are also probably very into the goth kind of shit. So it's almost like this album, while not quite fitting with the Fear Factory side of things, it strangely fits in the world, I guess, of Burton C. Bell. So my final verdict here would be that overall, Apocrypha is a very well done album. Even though it's not something that I would go back and listen to often, it does have a lot of qualities that sort of resonate with me. I guess, like I said before, the darkness, which I feel is a theme throughout most of the music that I listen to, is the common thread that sort of led me along, and I guess kept me from feeling lost. It was the optimism beneath the hopelessness, I guess you would say. And while I do hope that somewhere down the line we do end up getting a new Fear Factory album, I have to admit that hearing this other side of Burton C. Bell kind of gives a little bit more context to how he came up with his sort of odd vocal style in a lot of the Fear Factory songs. It's like it connects the dots. It's like, oh yeah, of course he's into this kind of shit. But yeah, totally enjoyable album. I highly recommend it. Even if you're not into the more gothy, moody kind of shit, I think you're going to find something in there that you enjoy. So there you have it. Apocrypha from Ascension of the Watchers comes out on October 9th. I'm going to post a link down below to the music video for the song Ghost Heart so you can check the whole thing out for yourself. But I highly recommend checking this thing out on October 9th. Should be out on all your streaming platforms and whatnot. So look out for it. And that's all I got for you today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all again very soon.